Buenos días, buenas tardes, and buenas noches, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Making Miami podcast. For our first ever episode, we are so blessed to have the presence of PBA President and Local 1403 President Steadman Stahl and William Billy McAllister. Thank you so much for coming on the show, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you. Right now, we're in a point where police and fire is more pivotal than ever, and so it's a real treat to have you both on, especially on this rainy afternoon. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us. Yeah.
So I want to start off. You both have very storied and interesting careers, very accomplished gentlemen. Billy, you became an MDFR firefighter in 2002, rose through the ranks, became a fire lieutenant, were captain of the rescue. You were also a terrorism liaison officer, a structure collapse technician. You've done a little bit of everything. Steadman, you began in 1990, were elected on the St. Thomas Ethical Leadership Advisory Board, were a municipal representative for the Dade County PBA. You were a sergeant in 2007, and you have over 30 years of experience as an officer and with the PBA. So I want to take a second. I'd really like to know about each of your respective journeys. What persuaded you to join your respective fields and led you to pursue leadership of your respective unions? Either one of you can go ahead first.
Sure. I wanted to always give back to the public and stuff like that. So in 1990, I applied for the city of Homestead. I was lucky to become a reserve officer, which is a part-time officer, and within 30 days after graduating the academy, I went full-time. I worked there until 1997. 97, I switched to the Miami-Dade Police Department, or Metro-Dade Police Department at the time, and then they changed their name to the Miami-Dade Police Department. 2007, I got promoted to sergeant. I got very active with the union early in my career, right after Hurricane Andrew. I got involved with it because I thought I could do more to help the rank and file, the officers, and the members that we represent at a union level. Rose through the ranks from a municipal rep to the board of directors. I've held every position on the executive board, and I was lucky enough just over 7 years ago to be elected as president of the South Florida PBA, and from that point on, I ran on a pretty simple thing of trying to want to make a difference, and I think we have.
And what made you get involved in the union more actively?
One of the first times we sat through a contract negotiations with a city manager, we were given two options. We could take a 25-cent an hour raise or a $500 signing bonus, and I thought that was kind of unacceptable at that time and I said, I can do better. And so when the position became available where I could run as the representative for Homestead at the time, I ran and I got very active with the union, and we got a better contract. And then I've always just gotten involved because I learned the one basic tenet with the unions, that everything in our life is dictated by politics. Everything from the ink in my jacket to the light bulbs, government dictates that. So we can choose where we want to watch the game from. We can be in the stands, we can be on the sidelines, or we can be on the field. I chose to be on the field, as Billy did too. And you got in there, and we wanted to get in there, and that's where I think we could do the most difference and make the most difference. And we have. We've become, both Billy and myself, and with the firefighters, been very active in politics. And we went through a bad time in the police world about the defunding and stuff like that. But we've got involved not only on the state levels, local levels, in the municipal elections, and to our judges out there. So that's what kind of got me involved into it, and that's where I thought we could make the biggest difference, and we have.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you could either be, as you mentioned, you could either be a decision maker, or you can watch the decisions get made. And I think that advocacy that you've done throughout your career has been absolutely admirable. And we are so lucky to appreciate our PBA and our police officers here in South Florida. And we thank our officers. We were talking about this before we started.
Thank you. And I found in life it's easier to be the hammer than the nail.
100%.
And I'd rather be the hammer.
Love that. So what about you, Billy? How'd you get started?
So I'm actually a third-generation firefighter. My grandfather had a brief career with the city of Miami before he started his own small business many, many years ago. My father did 30 years with the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, and I applied while I was still in college at University of Florida, and I got called at the right time, and I made the decision that it was really important for me. This was just after 9/11 to give back and contribute to the community, and I missed home. So I got hired in 2002, and I went to the area of Miami I felt like the most good could be done. And I spent my entire career on 95th Street. I was at Station 7 as a firefighter. I got promoted to lieutenant, and the guys were good enough to ask me to move across shifts and become their lieutenant. And when I got promoted to captain, I had to move across I-95 to Station 30, and I've been the captain, one of the captains at the Miami Shores Firehouse ever since. I got involved in the union less than 15 years ago, 12 to 15 years ago, because like Steadman, I felt like I could give back. I had accumulated enough experience, and I had some ideas, and I thought that would be a good place for me to advocate. And my predecessor made the decision to run for the Florida House. And there was a vacancy that was upcoming in the president's seat, and I made the decision that some of the ideas I wanted to bring to reality might have a better chance. So I stepped up, and life always makes sense when you look backwards, right?
Yeah.
Certain decisions, in the moment they're going to be foundational, and it's an A or B, you're going a different direction. And that was one of those moments, but I had no idea what was in store for me. I thought that we would, do the things that you and I do every day, make these things safer, reduce response times, all those things. And within a matter of months, the coronavirus pandemic hit us, first in a century of this magnitude. And then literally the week that we were wrapping that up, Surfside and the building collapse happened, and we were back into another first in a generation emergency. So in the background, as Steadman will do, while you're dealing with these things, you also are still trying to move the ball down the field to advance safety interests for both the public and then your members.
Yeah, I mean, as chaos is going on, you're just trying to get it to the 50-yard line.
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's just all about making that progress. And I see that passion and that advocacy for both of you and in your backgrounds. And the local does some really great work here. And there's a huge emphasis that you guys have on community and even in brotherhood. And in fact, you have the Brotherhood Initiative. Talk to us a little bit about the Brotherhood Initiative, what you all are doing with that as firefighters.
Firefighters see every day they go to work someone's worst day. Whereas you may have 5 or 6 horrible, nightmarish events you would prefer to forget happen to you. We see it 2, 3, 4 times a day in busier areas like Liberty City, West Little River, and those places. And we're human. So we still feel emotions after we deal with these calls. Of course, we show up and there's so much for us to do in the moment, and we do those things, but afterward, you have to process it. So the Brotherhood Initiative was the first iteration of the idea that we need to take care of those that stumble because of what they've experienced, that you are wounded on some level, maybe not physically, but emotionally, there's residue. You need to either find a way to move past it, or occasionally you need to seek help. In the aftermath of Surfside, we set up a foundation, the Resiliency Foundation, that provides free and anonymous mental health sessions with counselors. It was shocking to me that when we stood that up in the first year, hundreds of sessions were consumed by our members, hundreds. And it showed a pent-up need for our members, both our men and our women, to feel comfortable in a safe place to anonymously talk about what they carry around with them, that burden. So that the Brotherhood is really much like the Resiliency Foundation. It's how we take care of our own, because we know what they're going through.
100%. I mean, we often forget that the strongest people in our communities and in our lives are the ones that sometimes need help and are getting neglected the most, right? And so I love that you guys look out for each other and you have that Brotherhood Initiative. And I imagine that it also helps with retention, right? Taking care of your officers, of your firefighters is the type of thing that lowers retirement, lowers suicide, increases productivity and safety in our communities. So that's really wonderful. And I see so much of that advocacy. Again, like I keep saying it, it's a beautiful thing. And in both the unions, there's an idea, right, that people sometimes have about unions that's misconstrued, that they're looking out for them only. But I think you two are clear examples, not just that you don't do that, but actively are taking care of your members. And even in the history, Steadman, while I was looking up the history of the PBA for this episode, I found that you guys came out of the fact that there was once a politician running for state office that said that police officers should make the same salary as garbage men. And so you all got together and you said, no, this is not right. How are you going to abuse of your police officers in this manner. And so time and time again, you guys have stood up for the officers, stood up against people who wanted to take away their rights to unionize, even wanted to abolish the PBA entirely at one point. So talk to us a little bit about that history, your origins, and how that influences you all at the PBA today.
Sure. The birth of the PBA came from a commission meeting back in 62 or 61 where a commissioner, when they were comparing the salaries and different things, a commissioner had made that comment. Nothing against garbage men. They're very important. We do need garbage men here. But what I was finding frustrations, but let me go back to the creation of the PBA is what really got the PBA going here in South Florida and moving through it. But the frustrations that we sometimes find ourselves in is that we want to be held to a higher standard. And I agree that we should be held to a higher standard. The difference between police and the fire, what we're different is that when a storm comes in, we can't go home. When we're a 24/7 operation, you have to have the police and fire out there all the time. That is what the difference is. And so when the PBA when I became the president 7 years ago, I wanted to. I was feeling a us against them mentality, and that's the public, some in the public, not everybody, but some in the public, us against them mentality. And I wanted to try to address that. And so we are the community. We are fathers and brothers and sisters and husbands, and we're PTA members, and we're T-ball coaches and stuff like that. So that's where we really wanted to address that. Got involved, very active in the community. I'm part of the Lighthouse for the Blind. Make sure that we every Easter we take part in an Easter egg hunt for the blind children that have vibrating eggs, so that they can hear the vibrations and they can find them. Different other organizations we're part of, but it was important. Prior to COVID, we were seeing a tick. Billy was addressing too, the mental illness or mental health issues that are facing our first responders on both sides of this are they real? Prior to COVID, the number one cause of death in law enforcement was ourselves, a suicide. That was leading the cause. COVID came along, slowed it down, and as we're coming out of this COVID, which we're out of it, but as we're moving forward, we're seeing an uptick in it, both in police and in fire. So it's important. So we've teamed up with a group called Boulder Crest that once a month they come and they teach week-long courses from all our municipalities, and different police officers that come from all over the country that come to the PBA. And I know the firefighters have a similar program to help their firefighters through that. But it's very important to be a part of that. And so that's the big issue that I think that the important part of the unions was to this. There was a perception that you unions are the boogeymen. We're here to take the sidewalks. We're here to take your children from you. That's the furthest from it. We're here to be part of the solution, and we want to be part of the solution.
I'll actually jump off of that too and say that I feel like, at least the way Steadman operates and I operate, is while we're focused on our members and their needs and the things that only we may understand, we also best understand the community's needs. And you invite me into your house at 3 a.m. if your mom's having difficulty breathing. You run outside of your house when it's on fire and you let us go in. And if your dog is inside, we go find that. There's a special bond between the community and firefighters and police officers that I'm very sensitive to, and that I never want to betray that trust. So because we are in some senses, the subject matter experts, because we do it every day, we always are looking for means or manners to improve the quality of the service we provide, because you trust us. Mm-hmm. If we say there's a problem, we want you to hear from us first, not that we knew about it for 10 years and now you're finding out through an alternative source. We want to be the ones that speak up and say, hey, we have an issue, whether it's within our members and our own ranks and people are retiring or killing themselves. We also want you to know if we're taking too long to get there, or if there's an inefficiency or there's tragedies that are occurring that we know about and we want to do better. So that's the other part of it too, where unions really provide a public benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you and Steadman both touched on it, right? Number one, police and fire don't get a single day off. They run into the storm while everyone runs away and bunkers down for the hurricane or whatever it may be. And then there's also that innate trust with the public, right? Firefighters and police officers are the people that if you get lost and you see an officer, oh my God, thank God there's an officer there. Let me go ask him, how do I get home? How can I get help? When my grandmother a couple weeks ago fell and broke her hip, it was the paramedics and firefighters that came into our house and and helped escort her out and take her to a hospital. And there's that innate trust of letting people that you haven't met but are in this service into your home, into your private vicinity, and giving them an innate trust. Yeah. So that's super important. And I think that as unions, I mean, you guys have that importance of making sure that they're good on their end, right? That they can continue to have that trust with the public. But what do your days look like as union leaders? What do each of you bring to your memberships, and what can they expect from you?
I thought I was busy when I worked in West Little River. This job is 24/7. It's we jokingly say it's 7-10-hour days because I have 2,400 members that are active, 500 or more that are working every single day, 24/7, and we always want to be responsive to whatever may be happening in the moment during that day, whether it's with one of our own members, or there's a problem within a station and they're not getting a response, or there's a unit out of service. So we really are the I'll call it the 411, not the 911. They call us for how do we fix this issue. So it's really the way that I've scaled since 2020 the union's approach to try to respond to the members' needs as quickly as possible. That's what we try to do in particular.
Yeah,
and very similar to that, it's a lot more work that you take on. It's certainly it's a job that doesn't end. It's not an 9 to 4 job or 8 to 5 job. It's a job that it's all the time. I think my record is sitting on the phone with a member I drove from Miami to Orlando, and finally I said, listen, I have to get off the phone here at this point. But it's also a need because. The one thing with like the police and the fire that you can learn a lot of things in the academy, right? You learn on how to handle things, but when you really see for the first time a horrific accident where body parts are ripped off people, buildings have collapsed on people, the FIU bridge collapse, that's not something that just ended. Nobody prepared for something like that. Nobody realized it was going to take weeks to get a bridge off of cars. Nobody saw that kind of stuff. Nobody could have ever predicted a worldwide pandemic. Something as simple as gloves and hand cleansers was something that I know he was up all night long trying to figure where we're going to get it from and how we're going to get it. And
we manufactured it at one point. We were making our own 55-gallon
I mean,
drums.
if I'm not wrong, gentlemen, correct me, but even during the pandemic, when the city had that initiative to help seniors get the vaccine, it was police and fire going to people's doors and administering it.
Yes, and that's where you go back. Let's talk about COVID there. Again, we could have people stay home, which needed to at some point. We needed to keep people to work from home, but we could not. The police and fire had to be out there. When it came to food distribution lines, it was the police and firefighters out there that were passing it out there. The COVID lines, right? That's for people that are coming in with the symptoms. They're the ones that have it. The firefighters are having to go into that. We had to face that dragon. We couldn't decide to stay away from it. For the police, you have somebody that's mentally estranged, that has, it'd be nice to say, I don't want to deal with that guy, but we have to go and engage that person. When you've got people that have infectious diseases, it would be nice to say, listen, I'd rather not deal with it. We don't get that nor do our members get that option. Mm-hmm. They have to go face the dragons. They have to go up against the dragons and deal with that stuff. And COVID was something that nobody could have prepared for, because in the beginning you didn't know. I mean, if you were in the same county where you're going to be exposed to it with the same building, you had your kids, and then that's the other dangers of this is now you're out there working. You have to go home to your loved ones, and are you bringing that? We didn't know it at the time. You're bringing that poisons, and that, we're exposed to everything out there. SARS was a big issue. COVID was probably the biggest thing that we had to go out there and contend with. And then,
no matter what the monster is that day or during that era, it's police and fire that go first. The only difference between us is the division of labor. If they're bleeding and they need urgent medical attention or the building's on fire, we go first and they back us up. Mm-hmm. If there's someone on FLACA and they're running towards you, thankfully respectfully, he has something to fix that, and he gets in front of us. Like, that's really the only difference between the two is we know what his police officer's strengths are, and he knows what our firefighter strengths are, and we work very well together in the streets of Miami-Dade.
Yeah, and in many ways, your services complement each other, and that's why it's so amazing to see that you both can work together and you have this amicable relationship. And the stories that you have talked about, COVID, Surfside, all those types of things, those are the moments where Back the Blue and We Love Our Firefighters don't just become these like cliche little things we post on social media or a sticker that we put on our car bumper, but rather it's like, wow, yeah, we really do need to back the blue, and we do need to love our firefighters, and we need to make sure that they have the proper funding and backing from our public officials to do that. Because as you mentioned, Steadman, politics is everything. It's from the clothes that you wear to the food that you eat to the public safety that we're facing. And this budget season, you guys have faced major issues with the county, not so much PD as we were talking about, but there have been challenges. And with fire, we're seeing a whole host of things. The mayor says we have a deficit, then we don't. She says, quote, the services remain unchanged and the public will not be impacted. But then our firefighters continue to express concerns about the fire taxing district and the air rescue. So if you could break this down for us, what's a fire taxing district? What's going on with air rescue, and why does this affect our firefighters so much?
It's really complicated. We could do a whole podcast about it, but I'll give you the moving parts.
We'll do a different episode for that.
Yeah, we can do that. To give you the moving parts, in 1980, the voters approved and established the taxing district. And functionally, that's the MDFR service district. If your neighborhood firehouse has a green fire truck and a green rescue truck, then that is being paid for out of the service district. In Miami-Dade County, there's 6 fire departments. The other 5 happen to have red fire trucks that are traditionally red. The one major nuance, of which there's several, but the one that's under examination now, and that's the subject of the debate, is air rescue. Air rescue provides countywide service. In 1985, when it was established, the first helicopter was white. It was painted completely white. But if you leave cops and firemen with their equipment long enough, they're going to customize it. And that's why it has our livery and our stickers and all those things on it, because it was folded into our response portfolio, because we administer it. But it flies for Key Biscayne, occasionally the city of Miami, occasionally Miami Beach, all the time for Hialeah and Coral Gables, because traffic causes slowdowns in getting people that urgently need help to the hospital. So until recently, it was always paid by every taxpayer in Dade County. It came out of what's known as the countywide. And then recently, when the budget became difficult, there was a thought that we should put that very expensive helicopter service into the taxing district. So only 60% of residents pay for all of the helicopter service now. And by doing that, it causes us to essentially take out of the district and put $28 million on the table for existing service. At a time after the pandemic and Miami's grown so much, our response time is 9 minutes to emergencies. At 10, you're dead. At 10, if you're not breathing, clinically, you're most likely not going to survive. And we're right up against that upper limit, when our goal is to get there in a matter of a few moments so that we have the best chances of helping someone survive. So that's really the crux of the argument.
Yeah, so I mean, even just like the small allocation of money is making big waves for you guys, isn't it, in that response time and whether or not somebody lives or dies,
Right.
essentially.
This year, there's no new green engines or rescues in the budget. Air Rescue has taken all of those opportunities away from us. If that money were to be restored to its traditional funding model, there would be $28 million in the service district provided by MDFR, and we put up to 10 units into service over the next 12 months. Depending on the types, there's an allocation. We could really drive response time down quickly. That's the crux of the argument right now.
100%. No,
I'm sorry, one of the big things that I think I find frustration, I think we borrowed Billy's fire alarm, that we were, this didn't sneak up on us. We have new constitutional offices that they've known for years. And
for a decade.
Well, it was actually voted in 2020. It was supposed to take place in 2020. And then the lieutenant governor at the time stepped in and said, wait a minute, we need to give Miami-Dade County 4 years to be ready for it, because it's a big deal, these new constitutional offices. So you had 4 years to prepare for it. What I've found to be very frustrating in the system is that we regularly meet with all the unions, and we were hitting the alarms that this is coming, it's happening. This isn't, we'd have a lot of community meetings, and they're saying, like, we don't want this, we don't want that. It was too late. The voters of the state of Florida did it, and in Miami-Dade County, it passed by 58%. So the majority of the people here in Miami-Dade County wanted constitutional offices. What I find frustrating is that we weren't prepared.
Despite
that we are in
3 years of us bringing it up.
Every year we've been bringing it up, and so that to get here, I found it to be a little frustrating that we were here. In the sheriff's world, let me say in that world, we did a good job. And prior to the budget even starting, the sheriff got our full funding, which we needed to. The fire got everything, with the exception of the helicopters, which need to be addressed because I live in unincorporated Dade County, and so it's very important that we have to figure out as a government how to make this thing work now. You know, that the constitutional offices. In the past, all the money went into one pot, and one person would decide where it would went. If we needed money for lawnmowers in the Parks and Rec, we could pull it from the police budget. If we needed something in the police department, we could pull from the fire budget. If the fire got fires, now each. And I'm a supporter of these constitutional offices. I'm a supporter of it because now we can focus in on. The sheriff has a responsibility to do, the tax collector has a job to do, and the supervisor, all the constitutional have a, but we need to make sure that the fire does stay out there because when you call 911 and if you need a firefighter, you want them to show up, and if you want the police to show up, we need to be there, and so we've been. All our officials, and I represent a lot of municipalities as well. Almost all, with exception of one or two, we're having a little trouble with right now. But they're putting public safety front and center, and that's positive.
And really, what he's saying is, in 1980, we created its own millage and its own taxing district that puts fire rescue safety above discretionary spending and politics. It always just operated efficiently. And then with the establishment of the constitutional sheriff, now there is its own budget and they're able to make better decisions. So the fire rescue taxing district shouldn't pay for lawnmowers. It shouldn't pay for countywide air rescue. And you shouldn't be paying for barbecue grills or anything else that Parks and Rec may.
Correct.
There's a greater fiscal responsibility there because everything is separate and you can see those line items and it's a bit better. So you did get the funding that you wanted, as you mentioned, after some back and forth there. But what would you like to see for our officers moving forward? What do they need?
I think that, listen, we're seeing what I think, I don't want to speak for the firefighter, but we're seeing a tough time hiring. We can't get people to become police officers anymore. We're seeing just our city just to the north of here, Coral Gables, having to offer signing bonuses. We're down in the sheriff's office. Police, we're trying to get academy classes up and going, but it's getting people to apply to, to put in for it. You want to make sure that you're getting the most qualified people putting in for it. So I'd like to see that there's more emphasis put into, and to continue, the police budget is never going to get smaller. It's only going to grow because the price of a gallon of milk is the price of a gallon of milk. It's going to continue to grow. And we need to make sure that we have enough police officers out there. With the sheriff's office, she's got to have enough deputies out there because we can't rely on, we have some cities out there that can augment it. She's responsible for everything now, and we want to make sure that we're working with her and to make that. And so I would like to see that the budgets keep, and we're seeing it with our our county officials. They certainly stepped up and did it. And the same thing, I'm sure that Billy's got some of the same issues.
Yeah, we're starting to see it also just because since 2020, Florida blew up. It's grown so much. We're in a deficit wherein we need to hire hundreds more now to accomplish the service needs. But then the other thing that's just a few years out is I got hired in 2002. Within a matter of a few years, they had hired another 1,000 firefighters, which means over the next 10 years, you're going to see a need for, I'm going to throw a number out there and say upwards of 1,500 new firefighters just for MDFR to take on the new service requirements and replace those of us that'll be retiring after 25 or 30 years of service. So there is going to be an extraordinary turnover in the near future.
Yeah, and that's the next challenge for police and fire, which is why it's so important to have great gentlemen like you in place to lead these unions, and then conversely, great politicians that recognize the value and the importance in those things.
And that's the importance of the unions, is make sure that we're not seeing, there used to be us against them mentality. I think we're very well engaged in the community. We're engaged with our politicians. You have to, like I said, it's what dictates budgets and stuff like that. We got to keep us on the forefront. That's the one basic tenement I think that we all have in government is there's needs and wants, everybody needs to feel safe in their houses. You need to be safe in those parks. You need to know that when you call, there's a fireman coming, there's policemen coming. That's the one basic service that I think everybody, you can have as nice a neighborhood, but if you don't feel safe in the parks, you don't feel safe in those streets, then we become like we see some other communities around the country. We don't want to become them.
Yeah. Everybody needs to be able to have that innate trust in our fire, in our PD, feel safe in their home, feel safe where their kids are going to school, and feel safe in their communities. And on that note, I want to finish off on a more happy sentiment as we wrap up today. So what are both of your priorities and your visions for your members under your leadership as it continues on? What are you guys seeing, and what are you working on for your members in the future?
For me, it's definitely to get more firefighters in the streets of Miami-Dade, because they're just overworked. Our response times are too long, and bad things happen the longer something is evolving without us there to put out the fire, to take the person to the hospital, all those things. And that leads to mental health issues. The more out of control it is, the more likely it is tragedy strikes, the more likely they are to see horrible things. So all of this sort of fits together where it's good for the community, it's good for our firefighters, and if we work together, everyone wins.
And what can current firefighters look forward to?
More of the same. They know exactly who I am. I tell everybody what I'm doing. I tell everybody what I'm doing next. And those that don't believe it are surprised. I don't take any cheap shots, and I don't run misdirection. I just tell them exactly, right or wrong, what we're doing is the best we can. And whether they're in agreement with me or not, they know what they're going to get from me.
As they should. That's transparent leadership right there. And what about you?
Listen, the PBA, we stand with making sure that public safety is always going to be the front and center. And they're going to see more of that, continuing that. I'm certainly not taking any steps backwards. I think it's imperative that we keep the people and let them know that we are very important. A couple years back, we went through some very difficult times. There was a lot of the defunding and the anti-police rhetoric that was going out there. It had great lasting effects, but we're seeing right now, everybody wants law and order to stay front and center. I'm going to keep pushing that forward. And it's going to be staying competitive. We are fighting with other agencies on trying to get the police officers. Why do you want to go to this one and not to this department? So I'm going to make sure that, one, we make sure that the working conditions are kept out in the forefront, the benefits, working conditions. But the mental health issue has to be also looked at and keep going that forward. So I'm sure I can speak for the firefighters and the police. You're going to see us always keeping the members first.
Yeah.
100%. And with that note, police and fire, you are in good hands. Firefighters, police officers, we love you and thank you very much for your service. And for everyone else who's watching out there who's not on that first response line, go ahead and thank your police officers and firefighters next time you see them. With that, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thanks.